Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/WiseGuyRadio. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. That's at www.audibletrial.com, AUDIBLETRIAL.com/WiseGuyRadio. This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 29. I am sitting here with my co-host for today, my son, Cannon. Say hey, Cannon.
Hi.
And we're here just waiting for school to start and figured we'd get the show recorded this morning. And last night we had Cub Scouts and school activities and all kind of fun jazz. So besides the studio build and school stuff going, we could not record the show last night because of total exhaustion and the fact that my AC unit froze up last night. So that's always a lot of fun being here in Florida. Have to have air conditioner, especially this time of year. So anyways, here we are recording the show to get you guys your show on Wednesday. And this episode today is going to be tips, tricks, and some business talk, along with our review for our audiobook, which is the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And other than that, man, hope everybody's having a great time and a great week and happy melting. And just some updates in our studio. We are still in the kind of that almost 100% point. We're about 95% of the way there with the ventilations and what have you. But we're all in there working and sweating our ass off and what have you. And just again, those of you who are in the hot climate right now and working and sweating, make sure y'all are staying hydrated, because the worst thing you can do is not. If you're finding that you're not peeing at least once an hour, if not every 2 hours, that means that you're not intaking enough fluids for what you're expelling out of your body in terms of sweating and stuff. So make sure you drink lots of fluids. Like I always recommend, a little pinch of sea salt and some lemon goes a long ways. Makes a big difference. What do you think, Cannon? You like lemon in your water?
Yes.
Yeah, we like lemon in our water, especially here in Florida. So, that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get into our book review. And this is going to be somewhat of the wrap-up. Next week is going to be the full conclusion of the book. And this week was through chapter, basically 4 and 5 of the audiobook chapters. And in this part of the book, Michael Gerber gets more into the advancements of business, and he gets in kind of more of a talk about franchises and the turnkey concept of franchising, and gets into the whole definition of what a turnkey business is. And the whole concept for a turnkey business basically is a franchise where you go find a location through a company like a Subway or a McDonald's or a Burger King or Taco Bell or whatever, based on territories and what have you. And then you just get a retail spot. They build everything for you, supply all your stuff that you need. They give you the key. You unlock the door. You walk in. Boom. Turnkey business. And but what the whole perspective and point that he got into was the whole idea of how that whole thing started, which was with Ray Kroc, who is the founder of McDonald's. And even though McDonald's is not always looked upon as, a high-quality company in terms of food and what have you, they really revolutionized the small business of our country because it gave people opportunities to go into business for themselves with a franchise model already in place. And he really set the standards for franchise models and how they function with the fact that you can go to a McDonald's, whether it's in Singapore or Sydney, Australia, or here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and a cheeseburger is a cheeseburger, and it should all taste the same across the board. And unfortunately, through food, they have to add things to it to, have a consistent flavor per se. But that being said, the whole idea is really taking the concepts of what's called best practices, which is where you take companies that are doing really well and you model your business after them. And with my background, those I'm not sure how far back you guys have listened to, but in previous episodes I had mentioned how I worked at Subway for 7 years. After I guess it was my senior year in high school all the way into college, and there beyond until I started my glass business back in 2000. Really, I started in '99, but the business really thing started in 2000. But when I left Subway, I learned a whole shitload of business knowledge in terms of how to run a business, how to deal with employees, inventory, stock, scheduling, all that kind of stuff. But the main thing that I took out of the Subway was their business model and the idea of how to mass produce a quality product. And so I took that same business model and turned it into my glass business when I started my first catalog. And the idea is that, like a Subway, we would do our meats and cheeses and veggie prep in the morning, and then by noon, when our lunch rush would come in, we were literally cranking out like 100 sandwiches an hour. And we had an awesome crew. There'd be 4 of us usually on a line, and doing production, like, assembly style work. Now, in the glass world, what we do, assembly line work doesn't work. But still the same idea is there, where, you get up in the morning, you fire up your kilns, you drink your fluids, have your breakfast, take your poop, take a stretch, go to the gym, do what you got to do, and then you start doing your prep work. You think the poop was pretty funny?
Yes.
Yeah. And we all poop, so whatever. But you do your prep work in the morning. You pull your points or whatever you got to do for your prep for that day, if you're going to be doing some production that morning. And then by the time your prep is all finished up, your kilns are hot, your shop's ready, you're stretched out, you're warmed up, and then it's ready to crank. And then you can crank out your 100 sandwiches an hour. So with today's millennials, they're very conscious about what they buy and who they buy it from, and the products they're buying and the companies that they're buying from because of their practices. And so, like, for instance, Tom's was such a popular, and still is such a popular company, because Tom's gives shoes to those that need them. For every time you buy a pair of shoes, Tom's then donates a pair of shoes to, somewhere to the needy kids, or to African kids, or to wherever, just the people that need shoes. And because of that, and their company model being a giving back company, the millennial generation is all about supporting them and doing that. So think about when you're running your business and the perspective that you want people to have of you, you kind of want to make sure that you emulate and put forth a perspective that you care, that you're not just doing this for the money. You're not just doing this because you're a cool glass blower. You want to do this because you're passionate about your artwork. You're passionate about the flame and the glass and the product that you use. You're passionate about the product you create, and you're also passionate about those who purchase your work. We were talking the other day in the studio about sometimes, if you do custom work at all and you give somebody a quote, and then you start making the piece for them, and then you realize about a third way into the product you're making that you underpriced yourself. We feel that it's just better to say, fuck it, make it. Make the best item you can make, and whether or not your customer that you're making it for paid enough money for it, who gives a shit? Go ahead and make it and sell it to them and give it to them. And it's going to make a huge impact on your customer. And you can let them know, like, hey, this, say, whatever I'm making that you paid $500 for, I probably 9 out of 10 times could have sold this for twice as much. But because you care, and you care about your customers, because they're supporting you, they're supporting your family, if you have a family. If not, they're just, they're supporting you and helping you pay your bills. It shows that you care. So just think about those areas of your business and your perspective when you are working, and also, again, study businesses, study companies out there that are running. Walmart is such a big thing that they are entity-wise in the business world because of their business model. When companies, if you wanted to sell, say perfume bottles to Walmart, you have to go approach them, and they're going to tell you what they're going to buy your product for and what they're going to sell it for. You don't get to tell them what you're selling it for, because they know their customer, they know their price base, and they also know their business model. And because of that, they say, hey, we are going to buy this from you for this much. And then they're able to sell it for not too cheap, but an affordable rate, which then in return makes it affordable for your customers. And then they continue to sell the product. So there's just different ways of looking at things. So that's kind of the conclusion that I had from this particular section of the book. I'm sure there's more detail in there that I could discuss, but really what I took out of it for us as glass artists is the whole concept of best practices and modeling yourself and your business after those out there that are successful. I know myself personally, I have several influences in the way that I run my business and the way that I deal with customer service and my perspective on my passions for glass, but also my passion for you guys out there in the glass world, whether you're a customer or an artist or a manufacturer or a retail center. Dave Ramsey, for one, the way he runs his business and the way that he's expanded his business, not only as himself as a person who has helped millions of people and families get out of debt and change their lives, but also because he's also grown personalities inside of his company that are going to continue his legacy when he passes away, which will probably be in like 50 years from now because he's in his 50s, and with science, whatever. But, the idea is that you want to continue, you want to create a legacy and leave a mark on the world somehow through your business. So Dave Ramsey is one of the companies I look at that does that. They're all about giving back to the communities. They love their employees. I mean, he's been voted the #1 company to work for in Tennessee for, I think, like 10 years running now or some crap. It's crazy. I also look at, Disney, even though Disney is this giant, huge conglomerate of a corporation, I look at their marketing. I look at the way they have views on their customers and their customer service. I mean, really, for Disney, customer service is #1. They go above and beyond everything they do to make sure that the guests' experience at their parks or restaurants or hotels or riding the bus is a top-notch experience. So you got to do that for your customers. You got to be polite. You got to have patience as well, because sometimes people don't understand, that some things break or some items might take a little bit longer than you initially estimated. So as long as you're patient and you communicate and you're caring, your customer will be understanding, whether it's a custom order or a smoke shop that you're dealing with in the retail side of things. So that's kind of my conclusion for this week's for this week's take on the chapters 5 through 11, and then next week I will be doing the last 6 and 7 of the audiobook chapters. I'll be wrapping that up with a full conclusion of what I got from this book. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, because next month I'm going to be doing another book, and we'll be doing pretty much, I think, through this whole show, I think a regular segment on Wednesdays is going to be, it may not be every single week, every single Wednesday, it might be every other Wednesday, because of the way the show's growing, and we're bringing on new guests and features to the show and segments. But for right now, as the show grows, I want to continue to fill the Wednesday spot in the first segment for the audiobook. So that being said, hope you guys have enjoyed this book and continue to enjoy it. And this is one of hundreds of business books out there that will honestly change your life if you take advantage of the fact that these authors out there are writing this information for us to take in and to put into action. And now it's time for the Wise Guy Radio Tip of the Week. And this week's tip is how to make 2 pipes out of 1 point. Now, generally my basic standard formula equation, what you want to call it, for making hand pipes is that if I make a 4-inch pipe, I'm using 3 inches of prep to create that piece. Generally 1-inch heavy wall or 32 heavy wall or something like that. But what this idea is that if you're making a 4-inch pipe and you have a 3-inch section of tubing that you're using, then to make 2 pipes, you need 6 inches. So have a 6-inch point. You want to punny up to the point, make sure it's all nice and warm, and then heat up the center of that point to separate the piece in 2. Now you're not going to actually rip it in half, you're just going to constrict the middle where the head of the one pipe will start and the mouthpiece of the other will, basically end. And by doing this, you've already now set yourself up for 2 even points. From there, you will shape out each section into what your pipe shape is going to look like, not including balling up the head of the pipe first. Once I get the shapes down, the basic proportions down, I'll then remove my puntee, and then I go ahead and ball up the head of the top one, and then finish that piece. Pop your holes, push your bowls, make your carb holes, add your marbles, lenses, opals, whatever you want to do. Rip that bad boy off. If needed be, you can then stick the one that's attached to the handle or the blowpipe in your kiln to get it hot again, if you need to. Or if you do this fast enough, you can then just kind of slightly heat it up in the torch. Repeat the same steps as in the first process. Remove it from your blowpipe, clean up your mouthpiece, and stick that bad boy in your kiln. And this has been the Wise Guy Radio Tip of the Week. This is your Wise Guy Radio Tax Tip of the Month. So in previous episodes, I have discussed the concept and idea of weighing out your scraps of glass that you have in your knockout bucket, and also to keep a graveyard bucket, per se, to be able to weigh out your garbage at the end of every week. And what I generally do is I have a big pot that I use on my bench. And I know my pot weighs around 2.5 pounds. So every week I take out my glass and dump it in the garbage. But before I do, I make sure there's no water in it. And I weigh it out and just do my math and subtract the difference of the two between the pot and the glass. And it gives me a really good idea on, how much glass I have to throw away. And when you do that, also make sure that you keep a basic ratio of how much clear to color you have. Generally, in these type of situations, you will have probably around 80% clear and, to 20% color. So I generally keep around, say, $40 a pound for color, and anywhere from $2.50 to $4 a pound for clear. It just all depends on the product and brands you're using. But it's just a kind of a good rule of thumb to make sure that you keep track of all that stuff. And then also, as a small business, we're allotted a certain amount annually for loss and deduction. I don't know the exact percentages. I did some research and I found a whole variation of numbers. So I don't want to say a specific number because I don't want to give any false information. So definitely call an accountant or CPA for the exact numbers. But also think about, too, for deductions, when you are using your vehicle to make deliveries or pick up materials or supplies, the mileage that you use on your car during that time is also a tax deduction. So what I recommend you do is keep a small spiral notebook in your glove box, and when you leave your house, write down your mileage in your car, and then when you get home, write down the mileage in your car. And that'll give you a good idea on an estimate, and then at the end of the year, or quarterly even, but usually at the end of the year, when you file your taxes for the end of the year tax-wise, you're given a certain percentage ratio as a refund for gas mileage. It's only maybe like 30%, but it's still better than nothing. And it also, there's depreciation you have on your vehicle as well. And this only works if you are able to keep track specifically of the mileage that you use. You can kind of give a rough idea if you need to, because the IRS isn't necessarily going to ask for documentation for that kind of stuff. But you got to keep it within reason. I drive to Disney, which is around 100 miles one way. So, 200 miles round trip, and annually that shit adds up. But I can't deduct that because I'm not working for myself. I'm working for somebody else. But again, if I'm driving an order to a smoke shop or pick up oxygen or whatever, that time I spend on the road, including any tolls that you might pay, count as a deduction for your taxes and also depreciation on your vehicle. So those are just a couple areas that you can use for deductions to help save you at the end of the year for taxes. But again, don't forget that it is way easier to do quarterly estimates, and by law you're actually required to do quarterly estimates if you make a certain amount of money. I think it's like $15,000 a year, or I think it actually might be lower, it might be even $5,000 a year. But again, I don't want to give you guys specific numbers because I'm not an accountant or a CPA. I'm just kind of giving you from what I've read and done some research on. But again, I hope this all helps. So keep track of your supplies, your glass. Before you throw your scraps away, make sure you weigh that shit out, because that stuff adds up over a year, and will be amazed on how much stuff you throw away. And also it'll give you an idea to see where you can cut back from throwing all that stuff away. So I hope this all helps you guys. And this has been your Wise Guy Radio Tax Tip of the Month. All right, so I hope all this information has helped you guys today. It's a little bit on the go, and as you guys can hear, my recording levels and sounds and quality isn't as good as the studio time and sound, but I wanted to make sure I got this out today and give you guys some helpful tips and tricks and what have you. And this Friday coming up is a special show. It will be episode 30, and to celebrate the show, I have a special guest that we will be talking all kind of fun stuff that has to do with the laws, with trademarks, with copywriting, with shipping across state lines. We're going to cover a lot of the basis on just the nitty-gritty on some specific things that we deal with in terms of the laws of paraphernalia, per se. Even though there is laws changing, legal states and what have you, it still is pretty much, a fine line that we all walk every day. So, happy melting, everybody. I hope you all enjoy the segments and these shows. And after that, we will see you guys on Friday. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll talk to you all soon. Love you all. Take care. See you. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show. If you have any questions, comments, or remarks, please leave them in the show notes page area where it says comments. We'll see you soon. Have a wise night.